It's time. It's time for Christmas. And we need to do what John the Baptist says. We are too much like the first Christmas characters who weren't ready for what was about to happen. I'm not talking about decorating a tree or wrapping presents or baking a bunch of goodies. No, I'm talking about getting our hearts ready and our lives ready. Ready to come and see, ready to come and worship the Messiah, the Christ child, the Son of God, born in Bethlehem. We'd be wise to listen to what John the Baptist says. Get ready. We really do need to get ready, especially since we know how the story goes. But you know who really didn't have any clue what was about to happen to her or to her world that very first Christmas? There was a young girl in Nazareth who was visited unexpectedly one night by a heavenly visitor, a special messenger from God, and it was the angel Gabriel. Don't be afraid. Sure, that's easy for an angel to say. Oh, the young woman, she hears news that will change the world and the rest of her life. She's going to have a baby, God's son. It's all kind of miraculous and even a tiny bit scary, which makes the young girl's words to the angel and to God so amazing. What did you say, Mary? According to your word. I think Mary has to do that again. Mary, what did you say? I said, according to your word. That takes a lot of bravery and a lot of faith. And after all that, she still had to find the courage to tell her fiancé, who would be so shocked to find out that she was pregnant, especially since the baby wasn't his. But she was brave, and she remembered the words of the angel Gabriel. Don't be afraid. It certainly was difficult for the young woman's fiancé when he heard about the baby that would be born. He thought about divorcing her quietly, but that night, a special heavenly messenger made a visit to him in a dream, and the angel Gabriel said, "Don't be afraid." The man was startled awake when he heard the heavenly angel's message. He knew there was only one way to respond, and so Joseph said, "Yes, Lord." What did Joseph say? "Yes, Lord." The angel explained to him that he was to keep Mary, according to your word, as his wife. And Joseph replied, "Yes, Lord." Just when the dust had settled on all of that excitement, the Roman emperor sent out a decree, and that required all the people everywhere in the empire to return to their family's homeland to be counted. It would be a long journey, a really long journey from Nazareth in Galilee all the way down to Bethlehem in Judea for them. And so Mary and Joseph, yes, Lord, reminded each other of the words of Gabriel. Don't be afraid. And they set out on the long, long journey to Bethlehem, the city of David, to be counted as the decree had said. And Mary was very pregnant at this point. When the two of them finally got to Bethlehem, the town was bursting with travelers. They were all arriving for the census. And you know what happened? Well, all the rooms, all the hotels, all the Airbnbs, everything was full. There wasn't anywhere for them to stay. But they needed a place to stay. They needed a place to stay soon because they were hungry and they were tired and they were scared. And Mary was about to give birth at any moment. Finally, someone offered them shelter among the family animals. It wasn't much, but it was warm and they were safe. And that night, among the cows and the goats, Mary went into labor. She gave birth to her firstborn child, a son. And they named him Jesus, Emmanuel, God with us. None of this was expected, but they remembered the words of the angel Gabriel. Don't be afraid. And so Mary, according to your word, and Joseph, yes, Lord, accepted what God provided. They cuddled their new baby, and the new mother pondered all these things in her heart. Meanwhile, on the hills just outside of town, surrounded by sheep and under a cool, starry night sky, another scene was just beginning. Okay, as I was saying, there was another scene that was just beginning. The shepherds were watching their sheep during the night. Suddenly, a light as bright as day startled them, and music like they had never heard before filled the sky from a choir of angels. Okay, that did not sound like a choir of angels. And the choir of angels announcing the birth of a special baby boy that night in a stable in Bethlehem. The baby was God's Messiah. With great excitement, they made a decision that sounded, well, it sounded just like shepherds. Let's go! And they did. They went and they found Mary, according to your word, and Joseph, yes, Lord, and the baby lying in the manger, and they bowed down and they worshiped Jesus. Afterwards, the shepherds, they left to tell everybody about the baby. It was such a special night. They didn't stay in that stable long, though. Eventually, the little family found a home where they could settle and raise their son, the Son of God. Sometime later, another group made a long journey to Bethlehem, and they were the Magi. It was a long, long journey that took months, maybe even more than a year. But they were determined, those Magi. Follow that star. Right, that was their motto. But the star they were following was not just any star. It was an unusual star that led them on a long journey, an adventure, and they believed the star had stopped over the home of a child who had been born the King of Israel. The Magi stopped at the palace of King Herod to ask directions. And the star had stopped over a home in Bethlehem, which was in Herod's lands. Surely Herod would know about the child king. But Herod did not know. He was jealous and afraid that someone would try to take his place as king. And so they just carried on with their journey, those magi. And they followed that star until they found the home where a young toddler, Jesus, was living with his parents. When they arrived, they worshiped him and they offered him gifts. And when they snuck out the back to their own country home, they took a different road than the one that they had arrived on. They never told anyone. They never told jealous old King Herod about the Christ child of Bethlehem. And that's the story of Jesus' birth, about the coming of Emmanuel, God with us. The story of Christmas is about God coming to earth to be with us, to show us the love of God. God chose to surprise the world by being born to a poor couple in a stable, not as royalty in a palace. And the announcement of his birth went out not to government officials or movie stars, but to rugged, ordinary people. Foreigners from rich, exotic places. Rugged people with jobs like you and me. Come and see. Come and worship. This is the story of Christmas. It's a story that still means something today. God is still coming into our world today, every day. And like all the characters from the Christmas story, we can still prepare our hearts and our lives to come and see, to come and worship the Christ child. Just remember the words of John the Baptist. Get ready. The angel Gabriel. Don't be afraid. Mary. According to your word. Joseph. Yes, Lord. The shepherds. Let's go. The choir of angels. Glory to God. And those magi. Oh, let's go. So go, get ready. Glorify God, follow that star, for we are all on the way to Bethlehem to meet Jesus, the newborn Son of God, the light of the world, our Savior.